Hi, I'm Degé Coutee with Patient Advocacy Network at CannabisSavesLives.org, and this is your weekly edition of the Compassion Flower Report. I usually try to get these reports up no later than Friday afternoon, early Friday evening. Getting it out a little later than normal. Admittedly, I'm a bit distracted. It's called the World Series. So let's jump into a few stories. I don't have a whole lot to report, but the news that I do have is interesting to people. This report is about providing medical marijuana information and news worldwide. And I usually like to start the show with something going on internationally. Although Guam is one of our territories, that's the first story I'm going to start with. It says Guam governor vetoes medical marijuana bill, saying it reeks of legislative arrogance. This comes from the Cannabis Business Times. It says Guam, calling it inorganic and reeking of legislative arrogance. Governor Calvo vetoed a bill that would have given him waiver authority on Guam's medical cannabis law. Introduced by Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr., Bill 326 sought to give the governor of Guam waiver authority for certain requirements under the Joaquin Casey Conception Compassionate Cannabis Act. The act became law through referendum in 2014, but the government has not been able to establish a set of rules and regulations that would allow for medical cannabis use on the island. The bill would have allowed the governor to waive certain requirements of the law with the goal of speeding up the approval of rules and regulations. However, Governor Calvo vetoed Bill 326, saying it violates the doctrine of separation of powers. In a quote, he says, "The bill reeks of legislative arrogance. So many myths-truth have been disseminated through our community, painting our administration as the obstacle," Calvo said in a statement, "when the executive branch is tasked with carrying out unfunded mandates. We are set up for failure." Last week, the governor signed Senator Luis Muna's home cultivation bill into law that allows for cultivation of medical cannabis from home. So if anybody else has been following what's going on in Guam, they did approve medical cannabis there in the island, but it's just been really difficult for the island to come up with rules and regulations. Guam is very strict about its drug laws, other drugs. So I'm sure that we see this quite often with municipalities, states, or whatever, where they're very strict on other drug laws, and that creating, like in this one, a waiver, or as it did in California with the Compassionate Use Act, is it created an exemption within the law to allow for the medical cannabis activity. And Guam's been really struggling with it. The last story I did on Guam, they were having a problem with the testing aspect of it. The thing about Guam is it's a tiny island. There's not a large population on Guam. I forget how many. Maybe I'll be pulling this number kind of out of nowhere to remember, like maybe 300,000 people. There's not any money to be made in medical cannabis on Guam. And as we just heard the governor say, there's no mandate for funding. It's an unfunded mandate. So there's not a whole lot of money to put this together. So the unfortunate part is, of course, the patients who are suffering in Guam, and maybe they can't use other medications and they're just looking forward to using medical cannabis. Well, it looks like the way that Guam is going to begin to allow that is allowing medical cannabis cultivation from home. The story goes on beyond what I just read and talks a little bit about how people are concerned that those who are giving the exemption to grow might take advantage of it, this and that. But that's what's going on in Guam. They've been really struggling with getting their medical cannabis program started. This headline, this comes from the Ganjapreneur, and there were several outlets that reported on this past week. Republic of Vanuatu legalizes medical cannabis. Vanuatu is a string of islands off of the east coast of Australia. It's kind of between Australia and Fiji. So this string of islands, it says the nation of about 80 small Pacific islands will allow for the cultivation, production, and consumption of medical cannabis products, but for Vanuatu's 277,000 inhabitants, personal cannabis cultivation and the smoking of cannabis products will for now remain illegal. The legislation will be officially presented to the country's parliament later this year, and experts predict the licensing process will be underway by December. Already, Vanuatu officials have secured a partnership with U.S. company Phoenix Life Sciences International to produce a cannabis-based diabetes medication which will help treat the 13% of Vanuatuans who suffer from the condition. In a statement, Phoenix Life said it would bring its line of all-natural, effective medication to the nation through its national healthcare system, and that it is working with internationally recognized doctors and researchers to develop several innovative pipelines of medical cannabis products. This is very interesting. This is more than just about legalizing medical cannabis in a blanket way. This is a specific reaction in Vanuatu about what sounds like a diabetes epidemic. It says here that 13% of Vanuatuans, what a great fun word anyway, Vanuatuans, I could say that a couple more times, who suffer from the condition. So it sounds as though diabetes is very prevalent in on this republic of this string of islands, and that they are working with a specific company to bring medications in to help treat this. They're saying it's not for recreational. They're not going to allow smokable cannabis for now, but they're working with this Phoenix Life Sciences International to bring a line of products to help with this. This is very interesting. I think anybody who has diabetes, this is a good story to follow and see where it leads, what kind of numbers they get. It looks like there's going to probably be some research on this on a social level to see how well the citizens of Vanuatu are served by this new law. Next couple stories are on the legal front here in the United States, on the main continent here. This is out of Arizona. It says A.G. Brnovich seeks to outlaw hashish for medical marijuana patients in Arizona. Attorney General Mark Brnovich is asking the Arizona Supreme Court to declare hashish possession a crime for medical marijuana patients, but a former state health director says that's a misreading of the voter-approved law. State licensed dispensaries sell hashish and other products and edibles made with marijuana extracts, all apparently with the knowledge and approval of state health officials. But in new court filings, Brnovich contends the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act, approved by voters in 2010, legalized only the use of marijuana leaves and flowers and preparations by them by people who have doctors' recommendations to use the drug. He said that while hashish is the resin of the marijuana plant, the act is separating it from the leaves and flowers, makes it a substance that's not legal. Former state health director Will Humble, who wrote the rules when the medical marijuana law was adopted, says that's not how he reads the law. To me, it's a plain reading of the words, he says. Humble said that he and his staff wrote the health department's rules for what can be sold at state licensed dispensaries in consultation with the Attorney General's office. And at no time, he said, did any of the attorneys there say that extracts like hashish should be excluded. Humble dismissed any suggestion that hashish is legally different than other marijuana extracts now used to make edible products. In both cases, he said, it's a preparation. Brnovich would not comment on the case. The health department said it has been monitoring developments in the pending lawsuit and will comply with any decision of the Arizona Supreme Court. At last count, more than 180,000 individuals had qualified as medical marijuana patients. This is in Arizona. One of them was Rodney Jones, who in 2013 was found in possession of a jar containing it's 0.05, so it's a 5/100th of an ounce of hashish. Prosecuted by the Yavapai County Attorney's Office, he was found guilty and sentenced to 2.5 years for possession of a narcotic drug and a concurrent 1-year term for drug paraphernalia, specifically the jar that was holding the hashish. A divided state court of appeals sided with prosecutors, agreeing that hashish, essentially the resin of the cannabis plant, is legally not the same as the plant itself. The majority concluded the 2010 law makes it legal to possess only the plant, not the resin. It's ridiculous because the resin is on the plant. The resin is the medicine. Now attorneys for Jones want the Supreme Court to conclude otherwise. That petition puts Branovich, whose office handles criminal appeals, in the position of defending the conviction and the lower court's ruling. There's much more than the conviction at stake. This is crazy, and what I need to do is take a look at the state's laws there in Arizona, because as most of us know, there's generally the list of definitions that are in any law, and usually when you talk about the marijuana plant, even the way it's defined when it's illegal, they talk about the stems, the stalks, the leaves, the flowers, the buds, the seeds, the cake, the resin, so when they make it illegal, they make every single part of it illegal. I'm hoping that there's going to be a judge in Arizona that's going to say, how do you separate the two? They're one and the same. The resin is on the leaves. The resin is what the patients need. So again, very interesting legal case. We'll see where that one heads in Arizona, and hopefully this Rodney Jones, I hope he's not still in jail. It just breaks my heart. I guess that was in 2013, so he did 2.5 years. Yeah, he's plenty out of jail, but I'm sure he wants some restitution for what they put him through. In Florida, Governor Scott appeals major medical marijuana ruling. This is just out. This comes from a news station there called WPBF. Less than 3 hours before a 5 p.m. deadline, Governor Rick Scott's administration Friday filed a notice to appeal a Tallahassee judge's order that struck down a 2017 medical marijuana law as unconstitutional. The notice, filed at 2:36 p.m. Friday, came after Scott sought support from Republican legislators and the state's marijuana operators to appeal Leon County Circuit Judge Charles Dodson's decision that the 2017 law ran afoul of a voter-approved constitutional amendment. Dodson had said state health officials had until Friday to begin registering new medical marijuana operators after deciding the law, passed during a special legislative session last year, failed to properly carry out a 2016 constitutional amendment that broadly legalized medical marijuana. The circuit judge found fault with parts of the law that, among other things, capped the number of marijuana licenses and created a vertical integration system that requires marijuana operators to grow and process cannabis and distribute related products. Already licensed operators worried that the ruling could create an uncertainty in the fast-growing industry while also allowing more companies to receive licenses. Dodson's decisions came in a challenge filed by Tampa-based Flora Grow LLC, which was denied a license by the state and is owned in part by a strip club owner, Joe Redner. So again, you've got this really, and I've seen this happen before, even here in California. You have this very colorful group of people, like in this case, a strip club owner, who is somebody who's already familiar with a tricky business with a lot of regulations, rules that change. And he has obviously applied for a license, was denied, and is one of the people challenging these new rules in Florida. So again, it says Redner, who also got a victory against the state health department in a separate medical marijuana case now under appeal, called Scott's decision to appeal Friday a travesty of justice. So again, with the hashish and even here with the making decisions that violate the intent of a voter initiative. Like in Arizona, here in California, we were able to get our Attorney General, this was many years ago, he actually wrote an opinion, and while we were pretty confident that our law covered hashish, he did make in a separate statement that if it tests positive for marijuana, then it is marijuana, and therefore it's covered under California's medical marijuana laws. Obviously, Arizona's taking a little bit different approach to that. And then, we saw that happen in California with SB 420. That law put in plant limits. Someone challenged that, saying, well, that violates Proposition 215 because 215 doesn't have plant limits. And so the plant limit part of that law was thrown out. And then, of course, we had here in California something called MRSA, the MMRSA, the Medical Marijuana Safety Regulation and Safety Act. Clear, huge violation of Proposition 215. But then our government here very quickly umbrellaed MRSA with Prop 64 and shoved it all down the voters' throats all at the same time. And it's just been a huge mess. So those were the four stories real quickly that I just wanted to share with you from this week. Again, we've got an election coming up. It's the midterms. A lot of the news is centering around the two big places, Utah and Missouri, that have initiatives on the ballot. And we'll be watching those to see what happens there. The other stories that you'll be able to find that we didn't get into here, Indiana lawmakers are considering medical marijuana. One legislator said he tried it. Some things to know about Ohio's medical marijuana program. Medical marijuana approved to treat severe autism in Rhode Island. Concerns about deadlines being met about medical marijuana in West Virginia. So those are some of the other things going on around the United States with respect to medical cannabis. Of course, you can find all these stories and many more on our Twitter at Pan for Compassion. That link will be down for you below. You can go to our website at cannabissaveslives.org, sign up for our email updates. We also send out action alerts and more. I want to thank you for watching, and please donate. Patient Advocacy Network is a charitable 501c3 organization. Your support is always tax deductible. Visit our website at cannabissaveslives.org and click the donate button. I encourage you to please become a monthly sponsor in any amount that is right for you, and I'll be sending you your tax deductible receipt. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next week, I'm Degé Coutee, and this has been the Compassion Flower Report.